Welcome back to the college football playoff predictions, and let's get right into it with every single team that can make the playoffs. But before we get started, I want to ask everyone who is watching this to consider subscribing to the channel by clicking the subscribe button below. Only about 10% of you guys are subscribed, so subscribe if you want to see the videos for the stretch run in college football, bowl predictions, playoff predictions next week. So let's get right into it with Tier 1 clinched into the playoffs, and congratulations, Georgia and Michigan. I think that both of these teams have clinched the college football playoff. Both of these teams are about 15-point favorites, if not more, in both their championship games. So congratulations to both teams. I would be surprised if they lost, but even if they did, I don't think it would be wide enough of a margin for it to matter. So moving into Tier 2, winning in, and this is pretty simple. TCU and USC joined this club after USC got the dominant win over Notre Dame. TCU got a dominant win over Iowa State in what would have been the end of the book for them if it was back in 2014, the last time they did the same thing, but they got jumped. That won't happen this time, but they'll have to take care of business against K-State in the Big 12 championship. So pretty easy for those four teams. If all of those four win, then it's a pretty easy playoff. But Tier 3 need a USC or TCU loss, and that's Ohio State. I think that TCU would not be in unless USC also lost, maybe. So Ohio State is just sitting there, and who knows where they'll be in the committee rankings this week. I need to see how the numbers end up for USC, TCU, but I think that Ohio State will be number 5, presumably, the recency bias, everything like that. So assuming Ohio State's number 5, they probably need USC or TCU to lose in order to make the playoff, just because of how bad they looked at the end of that Michigan game. Got very out of control for them, even at home. So now is when we get to the outlandish scenarios. As you can see, Tier 4, complete chaos is what is needed for any one of these teams to make it. And as you can see, these teams have varying degrees of percentages if they make it. And these percentages, as is different from before, this is the highest percentage I could ever get with these teams. So let's get into the scenarios. Starting with Clemson, who was in the top left of the previous graphic, the highest percent chance I could get them is 27. So let's see how it happened. Michigan would have to lose to Purdue, knocking them down to 74%. They'd still be a safe lock. LSU would be losing to Georgia, so Georgia would be a safe lock. TCU would also beat K-State. They would also be a lock, but USC would lose, putting that 4th spot up for grabs. Ohio State probably gets it in this model, and that is what I personally think would happen. But if Clemson wins their conference championship, then there are 2 lost teams sitting there. I, again, think the committee goes with Ohio State easy here, but the model does have Clemson at 27%. But I think that will update lower after Clemson is hammered for that loss to South Carolina in the rankings. Let's get into Bama's shot. The highest percent chance I could get for them is 36, but as you can see, there are a number of teams above them. This is pretty much a complete chaos scenario. Purdue wins against Michigan in that Big Ten championship. Michigan, again, still makes it. So Georgia also beats LSU. They make it. So that's 2 of the teams. This is where it gets weird. TCU loses, USC loses. So who gets the remaining spots? The model thinks Ohio State 1, K-State tied with TCU at 2. So does the committee honor that K-State head-to-head? Would K-State be able to even rise enough for it to matter? I don't know. I think that it would be TCU here, but the model says K-State. But this is, again, the Alabama scenario. So Alabama, they're at 36%. That is the best case scenario for Bama. Again, 36%, and there's still a number of teams above them. So I don't really think Bama has a legitimate shot at this. Of course, I don't really think any of these teams on this page have a legitimate shot. But here is Utah's best chance. Only 22%, pretty dismal for them. They need LSU to win. They need to win. And then they need TCU to actually beat K-State, Michigan to win. So that's pretty much 3 teams in there. You've got Georgia, Michigan, and TCU despite the loss. So you're pretty much delegating between Ohio State and the 3-loss LSU. Again, Ohio State is in according to the model, but LSU has a fraction of a chance. Who knows? Maybe they beat Georgia by 60. Who knows? So this is the best K-State scenario, and it actually gets up to 62%, which is a very scary number. You pretty much have all the top 4 losing right now, so this was a very hard one to put in. I couldn't even put in the Clemson result. So all 4 of the teams lose in their respective championship games that are the presumed 1, 2, 3, 4 this week. Kansas State beats TCU, of course, as part of that. So they're up to 62%. So again, Michigan and Georgia are in according to the model. But Kansas State is the 3rd team here. They're tied actually with Georgia in terms of the percentage. TCU's down to 34% for various reasons that the model does not easily explain here. The other thing, LSU up to 35 in this scenario and Ohio State up to 43. I think that it would be Ohio State here. I don't think Kansas State would have a shot, but this is about the maximum chaos that you could get. And I don't really know who that 4th team would be. I'm assuming it would just be Ohio State, Georgia, and Michigan. But this model seems to like Kansas State for some reason. So we'll see what happens there finally. The LSU case, 44% chance we could get it if Michigan loses, Georgia loses, TCU wins. It likes a TCU win, and then USC loses. So that means that the 4th place team, which I think, again, would be Ohio State, but will it be LSU? Why is LSU getting those extra points? Because Clemson also lost to UNC, so that takes out that barrier ahead of them. Alabama has a 30% chance, but LSU is at 44 because LSU beat Alabama head-to-head. Again, I think it would just be the Michigan, Georgia, TCU, Ohio State here. But let's get into my official predictions after all those outrageous scenarios. We have a lot of teams that technically have a claim based on these various outlandish scenarios. But what I really think is going to happen, and you will see the betting lock on this game, I think that TCU will lose in the Big 12 championship. Again, click in the top right to see those betting locks and predictions. That leaves us with number 1 Georgia in the Peach Bowl. I think that Michigan will be number 2 in this week's college football playoff rankings. I don't think that's an outlandish claim for me to make right now. Some people might say Michigan, and I think some of the voters in that committee room might vote Michigan after Georgia got off to a slow start against Georgia Tech this week, but Georgia's the defending national champs. The committee will remember that Georgia dismantled Michigan last year, so they won't want that matchup till the championship. They don't want it at all, quite frankly. So in this case, the 4 seed would be Ohio State, and the Big Ten would get 2 teams with Michigan facing USC in the Fiesta Bowl, as USC was able to beat Utah in the Pac-12 championship game. As a direct consequence of that, I see Washington holding on to the Rose Bowl, and since Michigan beats Purdue in the Big Ten championship, then Penn State actually gets to go to the Rose Bowl because 2 Big Ten teams get in. In the Sugar Bowl, Kansas State steals TCU's bid for that one, and then Alabama's sitting there as the de facto SEC team, as LSU is 8-4 and not really deserving of anything. In the Orange Bowl, that's the ACC auto bid, goes to Clemson, who I have winning handily in that one. Again, check out the betting locks for my pick in that one. And in a very orange-esque game, we have them playing Tennessee. This one is a Big Ten / SEC / Notre Dame spot, but I have Tennessee as the best of those 3 choices there. And then finally, the Cotton Bowl, 2 at-large teams, and I have it being Tulane against TCU, who, with the 1 loss, if they do not get into the college football playoff, which will be the debate come Selection Sunday, according to this scenario I have here, TCU would be the highest-ranked team and would get to play Tulane in a Cotton Bowl. That is very disappointing for a team that was supposed to be in the playoff, but that is what I think is going to happen, unfortunately. Thank you for watching. Please be sure to like and subscribe and comment your predictions for the college football playoff and these conference championship games below.